Forget masked slashers and jump scares. The 1960s psychological thriller was after something far darker: your mind. These films didn't just want to spook you, they wanted to twist your sense of reality until you doubted your own shadow. But which classics did the American Film Institute recognize as the era's greatest? Why did the 60s become the golden age of cinematic paranoia? Strap in, because some of these movies still haunt the dreams of Hollywood's bravest, and AFI agrees. Psycho, 1960. If you've ever hesitated before stepping into a motel shower, you have Psycho to thank. Hitchcock didn't just make a thriller, he set off a cultural earthquake. It starts deceptively small. A stolen envelope, a lonely drive, rain on the windshield. Then Marion Crane checks into the Bates Motel, and the world tilts on its axis. Hitchcock weaponizes every detail, from Bernard Herrmann's shrieking score to the eerie calm of Anthony Perkins's Norman Bates. What makes Psycho more than just a murder story is its sheer nerve. Hitchcock kills off his star 40 minutes in, a move that sent audiences reeling. Suddenly, we're trapped in Norman's web, peering through peepholes, second-guessing every word, and wondering who's really in control. The set design is just as unhinged as the plot: creaky staircases, stuffed birds, and that infamous shadowy house on the hill. There's an intimacy to the horror, as if the camera itself is in on the secret. Decades later, Psycho is still the gold standard for psychological terror. The shower scene alone rewired the way we watch movies. Hitchcock didn't just want you to scream, he wanted you to feel complicit. Psycho didn't just break taboos, it set them on fire, daring every filmmaker after to go further, dig deeper, and never trust a closed door. Still think you're safe? Watch again, and see how quickly doubt creeps in. Peeping Tom, 1960. Imagine a movie so disturbing that it tanked the director's career overnight. Peeping Tom is that film, the British answer to Psycho, but colder, more personal, and just as relentless. Mark Lewis, the camera-obsessed loner at the heart of the film, isn't just a killer, he's an artist, turning murder into a cinematic act. And Powell? He's not letting you off the hook. The real masterstroke here is how the film implicates the audience. From the first frame, you're uncomfortably close. Seeing through Mark's lens, forced to watch, unable to look away. His childhood trauma, his isolation, and his fixation on the gaze are all laid bare. But it's the way the film makes you complicit, how it transforms simple voyeurism into something monstrous that still rattles critics. Every cut, every lingering shot is designed to make you squirm in your seat. At the time, Peeping Tom was crucified by the press. The word obscene got thrown around like confetti. But fast forward a few decades, and its influence is everywhere, from De Palma to Tarantino. The psychological depth, the daring meta-commentary, the raw discomfort. This is the blueprint for thrillers that ask you, are you sure you want to keep watching? Mark might be the villain, but by the end, you'll wonder if you're any different. Cape Fear, 1962. Every family's worst nightmare is walking out of prison with a score to settle. Cape Fear takes that primal fear and turns it into 105 minutes of pure, nerve-shredding anxiety. Robert Mitchum's Max Cady isn't just a villain. He's a force of nature, swaggering through the film with snake-like charm and a slow-burning menace that seeps into your bones. There are no ghosts or monsters here, just the chilling certainty that evil can wear a human face. Gregory Peck's Sam Bowden is the picture of upright respectability. But in Cady's world, virtue is just another weakness. The battle lines are drawn, not in blood, but in psychology. Every interaction, every threat, every lingering look is a test of nerve. Thompson wrings maximum tension from quiet moments. A shadow by a window. A phone that won't stop ringing. A child's bike left unattended. What makes Cape Fear a psychological thriller par excellence is how it strips away the safety net. The law is useless, the police are helpless, and the only thing standing between order and chaos is how far you're willing to go to protect what you love. Mitchum's performance is so iconic that even Scorsese's 1991 remake can't outdo the original's slow-burn terror. Cape Fear isn't about jump scares. It's about the horror of knowing you're being hunted, and the clock is running out. The Manurion Candidate, 1962. Are your memories even your own? The Manurion Candidate doesn't just ask that question. It drills it into your subconscious and dares you to answer. Set against the paranoia-soaked backdrop of the Cold War, this political thriller is so psychologically sharp, it still feels dangerous today. Frank Sinatra, Angela Lansbury, and Lawrence Harvey play a trio caught in a plot so twisted it makes you distrust your own mother. Brainwashing, conspiracy, and mind control are just the opening notes. Frankenheimer's direction is ice-cold and clinical, shifting from surreal dream sequences to razor-sharp confrontations with seamless dread. There's a reason this film got banned in some circles. It goes places that most movies are afraid to even hint at. The plot unspools like a bad dream. Familiar faces become strangers. And the more you learn, the less you trust anyone. Angela Lansbury's turn as the ultimate manipulative mother is pure nightmare fuel. And Lawrence Harvey's haunted, hollow-eyed soldier is unforgettable. The Manurion Candidate leaves you questioning every handshake, every smile, every news report. It's the psychological thriller as a political weapon, still timely, still terrifying. The message? Paranoia isn't always a delusion. Sometimes it's just a survival instinct. Repulsion, 1965. If you've ever had a roommate who left the dishes to rot, imagine what happens when the rot is inside your own head. Repulsion takes claustrophobia and isolation and turns them into weapons. Catherine Deneuve stars as Carol, a young woman left alone in her sister's apartment. And what follows is less a descent into madness than a free fall. Polanski doesn't just show psychological breakdown. He makes you live it. Walls crack, food spoils, time slips and stretches. The sounds of the city become distorted, threatening. Carol's reality fractures, and the viewer is dragged along, forced to question what's real and what's delusion. Polanski's camera traps you in tight, off-kilter spaces, using light, shadow, and repetition until you feel as trapped as Carol herself. There's no escape, not for her and not for you. The genius of Repulsion is how it takes the ordinary and makes it terrifying. A phone ringing, a knock at the door, a stain on the ceiling, everyday details become harbingers of doom. By the time the credits roll, you're not just watching a woman lose her mind. You're wondering how thin the line is between sanity and surrender. Repulsion isn't just a thriller, it's a challenge. Think you can handle being alone with your thoughts? This film dares you to try. Bunny Lake is Missing, 1965. How do you prove your child exists when everyone around you swears she never did? Bunny Lake is Missing is the ultimate gaslighting nightmare, wrapped up in London fog and smothered in suspicion. When Anne Lake arrives to collect her daughter from school, the little girl has vanished. No trace, no witnesses, no records. The teachers claim they never saw her. The police can't find a single clue that she was even there. Imagine your worst day as a parent, then multiply it by a Kafka novel. Otto Preminger doesn't give the audience a single solid handhold. Every character is just a little too composed, a little too evasive. Laurence Olivier's Inspector Newhouse alternates between patient and patronizing. But even he starts to wonder, is Anne losing her grip, or is there something more sinister afoot? As Anne and her brother dive deeper into the London underworld, the film toys with reality. Are we seeing a conspiracy, a breakdown, or both at once? The genius of Bunny Lake is Missing is its relentless ambiguity. The camera lingers on empty swings, echoing voices, and doors that lead nowhere. It's the kind of film that makes you double-check your memories and question your own sanity. And just when you think you've figured it out, Preminger yanks the rug out from under you. Bunny Lake is Missing is a masterclass in psychological torment, a film that delights in making you doubt, squirm, and look twice at everything. Trust no one, not even yourself. The Collector, 1965. Who knew that the most terrifying villain of the 60s would look less like a monster and more like the shy guy next door? In The Collector, Terence Stamp gives a haunting, almost sympathetic performance as Frederick, a socially awkward butterfly collector who graduates from insects to people, specifically the woman he's fixated on, art student Miranda. Frederick is no cackling maniac. He's quiet, methodical, and devastatingly polite, which makes him all the more chilling. Wyler's direction is a slow burn, turning a rural English basement into a prison of the mind. Miranda, played by Samantha Eggar, isn't just a victim. She's a fighter, constantly probing for weakness, bargaining, resisting, and even trying to connect with her captor. But Frederick's version of love is a psychological trap, designed to break her will. The tension is suffocating because you know from the first minute that this isn't going to end with a tidy rescue. What elevates The Collector above your average abduction tale is its attention to character detail and moral ambiguity. You find yourself uncomfortably fascinated by Frederick's logic, even as you root for Miranda to escape. The film is a textbook study in control, manipulation, and the terror of being seen only as a specimen, not a person. The real horror isn't the threat of violence, it's the realization that obsession, left unchecked, is its own kind of madness. The Collector is a warning. Monsters don't always look like monsters. Seconds, 1966. What if you could trade in your face, your life, your whole existence for a shiny new version? Seconds is the most twisted midlife crisis ever committed to film. Rock Hudson stars as Arthur Hamilton, a dissatisfied banker lured into a shadowy company's promise. Erase your old identity and become someone else, complete with surgery, new friends, and a Malibu beach house. Sounds like paradise, until the dream starts to crack. Frankenheimer shoots Seconds, like a waking nightmare. The camera warps reality. Fisheye lenses, dizzying close-ups, and distorted mirrors remind you that this new life comes with a heavy price. The real horror here is existential. You can run from your regrets, but you can't outrun yourself. Arthur's attempt to start fresh quickly devolves into paranoia, guilt, and the creeping suspicion that he's not the first or the last client who wanted an escape. Hudson delivers a performance that's both desperate and haunting, exposing the empty promises of reinvention. The supporting cast, including John Randolph and Will Geer, drives home the sense of doom. There's no such thing as a clean slate. Seconds is a psychological thriller that preys on every adult's secret fear. What if the problem isn't your circumstances, but your soul? It's Kafka for the post-war era, and its chilling finale will stick with you long after you turn off the lights. Culdesac, 1966. Stranded criminals, a crumbling castle, and an island that seems to exist outside of time. Culdesac is what happens when psychological tension becomes a group sport. Roman Polanski loves trapping people in tight spaces, and here he's at his most devious. Donald Pleasance and Françoise d'Orléac play a mismatched couple whose dysfunctional marriage is upended when two desperate gangsters stumble into their lives. The brilliance of Culdesac is its refusal to play by the usual thriller rules. Instead of escalating violence, the film offers escalating weirdness. Hostility turns to alliance. Alliances collapse into betrayal, and every conversation is laced with sexual tension, menace, or absurdity. The castle, isolated by rising tides and guarded by seagulls, is as much a character as anyone else, turning from sanctuary to prison. The castle, isolated by rising tides and guarded by seagulls, is as much a character as anyone else, turning from sanctuary to prison as the mood shifts. Polanski blurs the line between comedy and horror, making you laugh one moment and squirm the next. The character's psychological unraveling is both tragic and darkly hilarious. No one escapes unscathed, least of all the viewer. Culdesac is a pressure cooker set to boil, a reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are the people trapped in the same room as you. This is a thriller for anyone who's ever wanted to scream or laugh just to break the tension. Wait Until Dark. 1967. A blind woman, a doll full of heroin, and three criminals with nothing to lose. Wait Until Dark cranks up the tension by stripping away every comfort you thought you had. Audrey Hepburn plays Susie Hendricks, recently blinded but fiercely independent. When a gang, led by a sociopathic Alan Arkin, invades her apartment searching for their loot, Susie's world turns upside down, literally and figuratively. What makes this film a psychological masterpiece isn't just the plot, but the way it manipulates senses, yours and Susie's. The darkness becomes a weapon, and every creak, whisper, and footstep is a threat. Hepburn's performance is a masterclass in vulnerability and determination, forcing the audience to imagine what it's like to navigate terror without sight. Meanwhile, Arkin's rote is unforgettable, equal parts charming and sadistic, keeping everyone off balance. Director Terrence Young choreographs the final confrontation like a dance, plunging the apartment into darkness and leaving both Susie and the audience to rely on instinct and courage. Wait Until Dark is the kind of film that makes you jump at shadows and question every noise in your own home. It's proof that you don't need gore or special effects to terrify, just a locked door, a clever script, and the right amount of fear. Watch it with the lights on if you dare. Bel Dour, 1967. Double lives aren't just for spies and superheroes. Sometimes they're for bored housewives too. Bel Dour is a fever dream of repression, fantasy, and danger, starring the eternally enigmatic Catherine Deneuve. By day, she's Séverine, the perfect bourgeois wife. By afternoon, she slips into the world of high-class Parisian prostitution, searching for something even she can't quite name. Is it escape, thrill, punishment, or power? Buñuel never tells, and that's what makes it mesmerizing. The genius here isn't just the taboo-breaking subject matter, but the way Buñuel and Deneuve toy with what's real and what's imagined. Séverine's clients become proxies for her deepest fears and desires, and the line between dream and waking life blurs until you're not sure what you're seeing, just that you can't look away. There's a sly, dark humor to it all, from the absurd requests of her customers to the way Buñuel gently mocks both the prudish and the perverse. But make no mistake, the real suspense is psychological. Séverine is a puzzle, even to herself, and her descent into the brothel is as much about discovering her identity as it is about breaking rules. Deneuve plays it with ice and fire, her face a mask that hints at storms underneath. As secrets threaten to spill and fantasy begins to bleed into danger, Bel Dour becomes less about titillation and more about unraveling. How much of yourself can you compartmentalize before something snaps? By the end, you'll be questioning reality, morality, and the secrets people keep from even those closest to them. Bel Dour isn't just a thriller. It's an elegant, subversive dare to look beneath the surface, if you're brave enough. Rosemarys Baby, 1968. Some nightmares come dressed as dreams. Rosemary's Baby is what happens when all the things meant to comfort you, home, marriage, pregnancy, turn sinister, one quiet step at a time. Mia Farrow is unforgettable as Rosemary, a young wife swept up in New York's swinging 60s, only to discover that the real horror isn't in dark corners. It's in the people you trust most. The paranoia here is clinical, precise, and utterly inescapable. Polanski builds dread with surgical finesse, turning the everyday into the uncanny. The kindly old neighbors? Too friendly? The husband? Too eager? The pregnancy? Too strange to explain? Every frame whispers that something is terribly, fundamentally wrong, but you can't put your finger on what, until it's much, much too late. Polanski weaponizes apartment walls, lullabies, and even the blandest of furniture, trapping you in a maze of suspicion and dread. Mia Farrow's performance is a masterclass in vulnerability. She's gaslit, dismissed, and manipulated at every turn, and her desperation seeps right through the screen. But what really sets Rosemary's Baby apart is its refusal to give easy answers. Is Rosemary losing her mind? Or is there a real conspiracy? By the time the infamous ending arrives, you'll feel as wrung out as she does. Rosemary's Baby redefines psychological horror, making the ordinary terrifying and the personal universal. It's a film that gets under your skin burrowing deep and lingering long after. The true terror isn't monsters or ghosts. It's the possibility that you're utterly alone, even in a crowd. Would you trust your neighbors after watching this? Didn't think so. Pretty Poison, 1968. Pretty Poison is what happens when small-town boredom meets a wild imagination, and then both run off a cliff. Anthony Perkins, forever branded as cinema's most charming weirdo, plays Dennis, a lonely dreamer just out of a psychiatric hospital. His problem? He can't stop spinning wild fantasies. His bigger problem? He meets Tuesday Weld's Sue Ann, a high school cheerleader with a secret taste for chaos, and she believes him. The film is a sunny, suburban fable with razor blades under its smile. Dennis tries to impress Sue Ann by pretending he's a secret agent, but she flips the script, dragging him deeper into her own dark plans. Suddenly, he's not in control. She is. Murder, blackmail, and betrayal all tumble out of the closet, and what started as a game turns into a nightmare. Noel Black directs with a wicked sense of humor, making the American dream feel like a death trap. The tension isn't just between the two leads, it's between appearances and reality, innocence and corruption. Perkins is pitch perfect as the confused antihero, while Weld steals every scene with a sweetness that's always one giggle away from violence. What makes Pretty Poison so unsettling is how quickly it strips away the veneer of normalcy. In this town, you can never tell who's really in charge, or what they're truly capable of. The film never quite lets you settle in. It's part dark comedy, part horror, part coming-of-age fever dream. By the end, you'll be left with one burning question: who's manipulating whom? In Pretty Poison, no one is innocent, and no one walks away unchanged. The Boston Strangler, 1968. What happens when the most terrifying threat is hiding in plain sight? The Boston Strangler doesn't just chronicle a killing spree. It dissects the anatomy of urban fear and fractured identity. Tony Curtis shatters his matinee idol image as Albert DeSalvo, the man accused of terrorizing a city. Yet the movie keeps you guessing whether he's the real monster or just a pawn in something even darker. Richard Fleischer crafts the film as a split-screen procedural, bouncing between police drudgery and the killer's shadowy wanderings. The effect is dizzying, making you feel like the city itself is cracking under pressure. Fleischer doesn't wallow in gore. He prefers suggestion, unease, and the slow boil of mounting panic. The investigation is a labyrinth, twisting through alleys, tenements, and headlines that only add fuel to the city's paranoia. Curtis delivers a quietly chilling performance, morphing from average Joe to empty-eyed stranger with unsettling ease. Henry Fonda's detective provides the moral backbone, but even he seems haunted by the possibility that evil can be faceless, ordinary, even sympathetic. The real shock isn't just the crimes, it's the dawning realization that anyone could be next, anyone could be guilty. What makes The Boston Strangler linger is its ambiguity and willingness to stare into the darkness of human psychology. The line between predator and victim blurs, and the final scenes don't give comfort, only more questions. In a genre full of monsters, this one hits hardest by suggesting the real terror might be wearing a neighbor's smile. Don't bother locking your doors. Paranoia is already inside. They shoot horses, don't they? 1969. Who knew a dance marathon could be more brutal than any horror movie? They shoot horses, don't they? Turns the spectacle of human suffering into both tragedy and indictment. Set during the Great Depression, the film follows a ragtag group of desperate souls competing in an endless ballroom contest, because in this world, the last couple standing wins cash and, maybe, survival. It's psychological torment as entertainment, and it's mesmerizing. Jane Fonda is shattering as Gloria, a woman with nothing left to lose but her dignity, while Michael Sarrazin's Robert is just lost enough to follow her to the bitter end. The dance floor becomes a crucible, boiling away hope, identity, and even sanity as the days stretch into delirium. Pollock shoots it like a waking nightmare, Stale air, pounding feet, and the relentless cheer of the MC, a sinister, grinning Gig Young, who's equal parts ringmaster and vulture. What makes the film so effective is how quickly optimism curdles into despair. The contestants start out laughing, flirting, and dreaming, but the contest strips them to the bone. Physical exhaustion gives way to psychological collapse, alliances fracture, and by the time you see the famous final shot, you're left gasping for air. This isn't just a dance, it's a fight for the right to keep existing. They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Is a psychological thriller for anyone who's ever wondered what people will do when pushed past their limits. The answer? Anything. And nothing good. You won't forget this one. It gets under your skin and refuses to leave. Sometimes the scariest monsters aren't murderers or madmen. They're just ordinary people, pushed to the edge. So after all these mind games, who's checking under the bed and double locking their doors? The 1960s didn't just change cinema. It dared us to question everything we see, feel, and trust. Which of these thrillers twisted your head the most? Or did we leave out your personal nightmare? Drop your picks in the comments, hit subscribe, and share this list with someone who thinks old movies can't mess with your mind. Thanks for joining our AFI-inspired countdown. Remember, reality is always up for debate.